All right, good evening. Tonight, before we start, I would like to ask our chaplain, Remco Bromlett, to lead us in our invocation.
Let's pray. Our God, tonight we acknowledge you as our creator and our sustainer, and we thank you that your fullness comes to us in so many different ways, in grace and blessing. And we ask that you confer that on the people of the city of Milton tonight in the form of safety and well-being. We ask that you bless all the initiatives that are going on in the city in so many different ways by volunteers and committees and professionals to make life safer and better for the people that live here. And we ask that you confer it tonight on the city council as well. We pray for this meeting, and we pray that you give the city council and the mayor and the staff that is gathered here wisdom and clarity of mind in making the decisions that they need to on behalf of the people. And so we commit ourselves into your hands, and we acknowledge our need for you, for your wisdom, and for your voice speaking to us, and for your strength. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much. Okay, I'd like to call the regular meeting of the Milton City Council for Monday, March 17th, 2014 to order. Will the city clerk please call the roll and make general announcements?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'll be happy to call roll for the March 17th, 2014 regular meeting. I would like to remind those in attendance to please silence all cell phones at this time. Those attending the meeting who would like to provide public comment, either during the public hearing or during the call for public comment, you are required to complete a public comment card prior to speaking on an item. There is no public comment for consent agenda items or items under first presentation. Those called to speak will be taken in the order that their speaker cards were received by the city clerk staff prior to the beginning of tonight's meeting. All speakers will identify themselves by name, address, and organization if applicable. The City Council may allow public comment on either an agenda item or general public comment from a representative of such an organized group or association, provided that such an individual shall file a notarized affidavit that they have the authority to speak on behalf of said organization on a form provided by the city clerk prior to the agenda item being called. Demonstration of any sort within this chamber is prohibited, so please refrain from any applause, cheering, booing, outbursts, or dialogue with any person speaking. Please show the same respect to the person speaking that you will expect to receive yourself. Anyone in violation will be asked to leave. As I call roll this evening, please confirm your attendance. Mayor Joe Lockwood.
Here.
Councilmember Karen Thurman.
Here.
Councilmember Matt Boots.
Here.
Councilmember Bill Luss.
Here.
Councilmember Joe Longoria.
Here.
Councilmember Rick Morick is absent.
Rick Morgan will be here in a few minutes.
Okay. For the record, Councilmember Burt Hewitt is absent this evening. Would everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Okay, and I got a special guest, Andre, your brother. If you'll come up here and help me lead the Pledge of Allegiance. I assume that's your brother, right? All right, guys. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, I want to welcome everybody here tonight. We appreciate you being here, and our city clerk will please sound the first item.
Our first item this evening is approval of the meeting agenda. This is agenda item number 14067.
Okay, do I have any thing that staff would like to address on the agenda?
I'd like to request that you make one modification to the agenda, and that's to move the first item in new business, which is agenda item number 14078, to immediately following the first presentation.
Okay, anything else anybody has? Okay, do I have a motion?
Mayor, I'd move that we accept or approve the agenda as modified to move the first item on new business up to first presentation or in front of first presentation. And that's all.
Okay, do I have a second? Got a motion by Councilmember Longoria, second by Councilmember Thurman. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
That's unanimous. Okay. Do we have any public comments, Sue?
We do not have any general public comments, sir.
Okay. And we will move on to our consent agenda. If you would please read the items.
Our first item this evening is approval of the March 3rd, 2014 regular City Council meeting minutes. Agenda item number 14068. Next, approval of the March 10th, 2014 special called regular City Council meeting minutes. Agenda item number 14069. Next, approval of the financial statements for the period ending February 2014. Agenda item number 14070. Our next consent agenda item, approval of an agreement for vehicle maintenance and repairs between the City of Milton and Cherokee Ford Lincoln of Alpharetta LLC. Agenda item number 14071. Next, approval of amendments to the Personnel Policy Handbook to modify the City of Milton policies regarding social media, sick leave appeal, grievance rights, and holiday pay. This is agenda item number 14072. Next, approval of the change order number 1 for a professional services agreement between the City of Milton and BM&K PC for State Route 372, Crabapple Road, Birmingham Highway, intersection improvements and right-of-way services. This is agenda item number 14073. Our seventh consent agenda item is approval of an agreement between the City of Milton and Williams Fire Apparatus for the purchase of an ambulance for emergency medical transport. This is agenda item number 14074. Next, approval of an agreement between the City of Milton and Comcast Cable Communications Management, LLC, for Internet circuit connectivity. This is agenda item number 14075. Next, approval of a professional services agreement between the City of Milton and Stantec Consulting Services, Inc. for Milton Multi-Use Trail Connection to Big Creek Greenway. This is agenda item number 14076. Our 10th and final consent agenda item this evening is approval of a change order between the City of Milton and Atkins North America, Inc. to provide preliminary engineering design phase for Crabapple Streetscape Project. This is agenda item number 14077.
Mayor, I'll move to approve the consent agenda as prepared by staff.
Second.
Okay. Got a motion by Councilmember Lusk, a second by Councilmember Kuntz. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. Okay, we're going to move on to reports and presentations.
Next, we have a proclamation recognizing Rare Disease Day. This is being presented by Mayor Joe Lockwood.
Okay, and I am proud tonight to be able to issue this proclamation. I want to thank the Johnson family for being here and making us aware of this. I'll introduce them and bring them up in a few minutes. Right now, I do want to say I had the pleasure of attending Crabapple Crossing Elementary School with Senator John Albers and Robert Avosa, the superintendent of the schools, and met Andre and there was another little girl named Abby and Ryan there, and we talked about rare diseases. And I have to say this: to meet any of these three kids, you wouldn't have any idea that they were dealing with a rare disease. And I got to say, I'm just so proud of them. You look at what they go through, and just the spirit, and just really warms your heart to know that you guys and your parents, everything that you go through, but we surely don't see it and realize it. But it's just I just look up to you guys and really respect you, because you're doing a great job. And thanks to your parents, we're going to have this proclamation so we can hopefully make folks more aware of all the different rare diseases. But we're honored to have you here, and you make us proud in the City of Milton. So I'm going to read the proclamation first, and then I'll ask you guys to come up and we'll present it. This is a proclamation recognizing Rare Disease Day. Whereas on February 28th, the National Organization for Rare Disorders and National Institute of Health held National Rare Disease Day. And whereas, as part of the awareness effort Fulton County School Superintendent Dr. Robert M. Mavosa joined Senator John Alvarez and Mayor Joe Lockwood at Crabapple Crossing Elementary in recognizing the courageous fight of the 3 students. And whereas there are nearly 7,000 diseases and conditions considered rare, each affecting fewer than 200,000 Americans in the United States, according to the NIH. And whereas, while each of these diseases may affect a small number of people, rare diseases as a whole affect almost 30 million Americans. And whereas, while more than 450 drugs and biologics have been approved for the treatment of rare diseases, according to the Food and Drug Administration, or FDA, millions of Americans still have rare diseases for which there is no approved treatment. And whereas individuals and families affected by rare diseases often experience problems such as diagnosis delay, difficulty finding a medical expert, and lack of access to treatments or ancillary services. And whereas thousands of residents of Georgia and hundreds in Milton are among those affected by rare diseases, since nearly 1 in 10 Americans have rare diseases. And whereas thousands of patients and caregivers, medical professionals, researchers, companies developing orphan products to treat people with rare diseases and other in the state of Georgia will participate in that observance. Now, therefore, we, the mayor and the city council of the city of Milton, let it be resolved that the city of Milton observe Rare Disease Day given under our hand and seal of the city of Milton on Georgia on the 17th day of March 2014. And Andre, if you and your family would come up to the podium, and we'll present you with if the council would join me. I probably couldn't pronounce what Andre's dealing with, but I do know a little bit about it, and I know you have to have a really strict diet. You watch what you eat, and you got to be careful you don't get sick, and you have to go to the hospital too. So this is one tough little guy here, so makes us all proud. This proclamation, career dead. We've got extra in case teachers here will give that to us.
You don't have this.
Yeah, you guys want to come on in the middle?
Yeah, you show the
We'll
middle.
everybody in here.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think there's a couple, maybe a week or 2 ago, did you cut the paper where they did it right up? I think those pictures in there and stuff. All right, well, thank you. We are so proud of you. Let us know if we can do anything for you.
Tough kid.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Very good.
Tough kid.
All right, if the city clerk will please call the next item, then I believe we move from motion and a vote.
Our next item is consideration of a resolution appointing a member to the City of Milton Planning Commission by appointing a board member for District 2, Post 1. This is agenda item number 14078.
Okay, this, for this appointment of member to the Milton Planning Commission is Councilmember Bill Lust appointee. So if you want to introduce Noel.
Sure will. I have the pleasure tonight of introducing and presenting Noel Carpenter to fill the vacated position on our Planning Commission, a seat that was held by Terry Herr for the last couple of years. And I'll give you a brief background on Noel, and I think he's well qualified for this position. Noel's worked and lived in Milton since 1997, along with his wife Suzanne and 3 children. He's been in the construction industry for more than 20 years, including in program management, operations and project management, quality management, business development, and corporate training. In May of this year, he will be graduating from Clemson University and achieving his PhD in planning, design, and built environment. He was in his latest pursuit for this latest degree. He performed construction research and he's also taught undergraduate courses in construction science and management. His dissertation, his PhD dissertation, is focused on project delivery methods for the construction of public schools in North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, and Florida. Noel's a veteran. He served with the U.S. Army in the 82nd Airborne Division. He has degrees, Bachelor of Science from the University of Florida and a Master of Science in Construction Management from Florida International University. He holds contractor licenses in Florida and the state of Georgia. I recommend and propose Noel Carpenter to fill the vacated position on the Planning Commission.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve a consideration of a resolution appointing a member to the City of Milton Planning Commission by appointing a board member for District 2, Post 1, Noel Carpenter.
Second that.
Okay, got a motion by Councilmember Thurman, I believe Councilmember Kuntz was first. It was pretty close, but
I'll give it to him this time.
if there's any discussion, I just want to thank Noel, as I do all of our members that volunteer to help out our city. We appreciate everything, and I agree with Bill. Noel's very qualified, and we're happy to have you on there. So, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. Noel, if you want to step forward, we can go ahead and swear you in.
Solemnly swear and affirm
That I will faithfully perform the duties of
that I will faithfully perform the duties of
Planning Commission member
Planning Commission member
of the city.
of the city,
That I will support and defend the charter thereof,
and I will support and defend the charter thereof,
as well as the Constitution
as well as the Constitution
and the laws of the state of Georgia
and the laws of the state of Georgia
and of the United States of America.
and the United States of America.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Just so you guys, one thing I've learned, is you read off the sentences and have people look them in the eye instead of repeating the eye. You mess up. Look them in the eye.
So help me.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Joe. Appreciate it. Yes, sir.
Thanks, Noel.
Okay, we'll move back on our agenda, and Sudi, if you will call the next item.
Next item is a public hearing, consideration of an ordinance to adopt amendments to the fiscal 2014 budget for each fund of the City of Milton, Georgia, amending the amount shown in each budget as expenditures, amending the several items of revenue anticipations, prohibiting expenditures to exceed appropriations, and prohibiting expenditures to exceed actual funding available. This is agenda item number 14063. First presentation was at the March 3rd, 2014 regular City Council meeting. Ms. Stacy Inglis.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Make sure my microphone's on. There we go. The goal of the fiscal year, the mid-year budget amendment, is typically to bring revenues and expenditures to, I guess, kind of jive with what the activity to date is. This year we have a little special amendment that we have to make, and that is to account for the local option sales tax that we are now receiving as a result of the renegotiated certificate that we had. And we are expecting to receive quite a bit more this fiscal year, which has been a lot more fun adding to the budget than taking away. So therefore, in the general fund, the revenue appropriation increase is $3,608,815, and we have an expenditure appropriation increase of $3,305,636. So there's a net fund balance increase of $303,179. So we'll just highlight some of the amendments for you, and if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. For revenue amendments, obviously, as I mentioned, local option sales tax is increasing. For the remainder of this fiscal year, we expect it to be $3 million more than what we appropriated at the beginning of the fiscal year. Other revenues have increased as well. Motor vehicle taxes are increased significantly, and this is as a result of House Bill 386, which was passed by legislators in 2012, and this replaces the birthday tax. So as the birthday tax cycles out and this new tax is taking place, we were expected to receive higher than anticipated revenues for the next 2 or 3 years, and then it'll start tapering down. So we expect an increase in this line of $150,000. Insurance premium tax is trending higher than we anticipated over the past 2 years, and since this revenue is actually collected after the fiscal year ends, it's hard to actually budget for what we anticipate that line item to be. So we expect an increase in this line of $100,000. Building permit revenues are still trending higher than we anticipate, so that line is increasing by $80,000. Court admin fees and fines and forfeitures were also increased by a total of $140,000 due to the trend of higher than anticipated revenues. So moving on to expenditures, we're proposing to transfer $2 million out of the general fund to a newly created fund that accounts for the cost of construction of 3 major projects, which is the Bell Memorial Park, the City Hall, and the Public Safety Facility. And this is based on feedback from the council that we received during retreat in December. Construction costs will be supplemented with the issuance of a revenue bond and paid down over a period of 10 years, mostly with funds of this newly increased revenue of local option sales tax. Staffing levels in the police department have trended lower than industry standards based on call volume and response times. And research shows that we are lacking 10 positions, so in order to kind of close that gap, we are proposing 4 new officers and 1 sergeant. The cost remainder of this fiscal year would be approximately $188,576 in operating expenses. We have a new lease agreement for the City Hall space that we are currently in. During the negotiations of that lease agreement, we extended the term of the lease to 2019, reduced the rent, and it allowed us to give back a portion of the current lease space in 2017. We're timing, the projects for the City Hall construction and the Public Safety Facility with the new lease term. But during the process of negotiating the new lease agreement and with meetings with the department heads, we realized that there are some inefficiencies with what the current structure is, with having the police detectives out at Station 43 and having fire admin away from their fire stations. So we're going to swap spaces. What we anticipate, or what we are proposing to do, is swap spaces. Move the detectives into the City Hall area where the fire admin is, and move fire admin out to Station 43. The cost to do so is a projected $65,000 for renovations in City Hall and $50,000 for the fire station renovations, a total of $115,000. And this would mostly be offset with a reduction in rent of $73,222. We recently promoted the administrative services manager to finance manager, and the salary related to this position was moved from the Human Resources Department to the Finance Department. Record storage in City Hall has well exceeded the space that we currently have for it. There's paper everywhere if you walk through everybody's offices. So we are requesting to implement a new storage storing records off-site and contracting with a company to scan our documents. This is to protect them and make sure that we have everything in a more, viewable format for our public if they need to see any of our documents. So we've requested $30,000 for the implementation of this. We're also requesting to add an assistant fire marshal to the fire department. This position will provide assistance to the fire marshal with fire inspections and plan reviews, fire investigations, community education outreach, emergency management, and other life safety initiatives. The cost for the remainder of this fiscal year would be approximately $39,744. Also within the fire department, we are requesting $29,250 to purchase 3 thermal imaging cameras to replace the cameras that are currently out of service or reaching the end of their lifespan. In the city manager's budget, we are requesting $45,000 to fund professional consulting to explore an official public-private partnership program in Milton. Future partnerships are expected to and intended to offset this expense. In the public information and marketing budget, we are requesting $49,000 for the upgrade of the city's website. This is basically to refresh the look and increase the functionality of the current site. Recently, the City Council expressed an interest in implementing implementing impact fees to offset the cost to service new developments in the city. So to hire a consultant, we're requesting $50,000. And of course, with the recent snowstorms that we had, there were more costs than we anticipated within our emergency services allowance budget and for fire overtime. So we're requesting some funds to be transferred out of the contingency budget into Public Works for emergency services allowance of $55,000 and into fire for overtime of $8,000. And lastly, we're proposing to transfer $664,722 out of the general fund and into the capital projects fund for vehicle replacement reserve for non-public safety vehicles. We have, I believe, 8 vehicles that are non-public safety related, which are 3 in the Public Works Department, 2 for code enforcement, 1 for, I think it was a city pool car, and I can't remember what the other one was for. 5 new vehicles for the proposed new positions in the police department of $233,365. 2 automated license plate readers of $39,917, and we anticipate the cost for that to be offset with revenues that we receive from those. Replace the fire battalion chief vehicle, $57,440. Purchase a new fire safety house for community education, $16,000. Purchase new school zone flashers at Birmingham Falls Elementary and replace others at Cogburn at $88,000. An extension of the sidewalk on Cogburn for elementary and middle schools to North Park of $180,000. Those were the major expenditure amendments in the in the general fund. In the capital grant fund, there's some revenue increases and expense increases, and this is mostly to recognize revenues from the transportation alternative programs, the TAP grant money that we anticipate to receive for the Big Creek project. This is a connection that we're funding a consultant for. We're anticipating getting $200,000 from the GDOT for the TAP grant, and then another $30,000 from Alpharetta and North Fulton CID, and then we have a match of $20,000. That $20,000 is coming out of the pavement management fund in the capital projects fund and being transferred over to the capital grant fund. And the offset for those would be an increase in the expenditures of $250,000. We are also recognizing revenue that we receive from LMIG funds of $275,873, and that goes towards pavement management. And that is all I have for you tonight. Do you have any questions?
Well, first I'll open up for questions, but just for the public, as our finance manager stated, we've got a $3 million plus additional sales tax local option sales tax for the city of Milton, which we're very fortunate to have, but also to clarify that it's not necessarily, well, some might think that's a windfall or an additional $3+ million. Basically what it is because the census was revised, and in the past we were getting our share as though we had about half of our population. So while we are fortunate to have it increase, it's really just getting it up to be fair. So but we are fortunate that that's happened. And also just for the public, the budget documents are this thick, and as our finance directors going over some highlights, these are things that have been published online and available for quite some time now, and the council's had plenty of opportunity to look at that. So as we move through this, it just, if it doesn't take a whole lot of time, that's why. It's been vetted out and been lots of time to look at it. But anyway, so I'll open up for questions.
Mr. Mayor, before you do that, this is actually the public hearing portion of the budget, so if you could just call for the public hearing, and then if there is none, if you could close it before we move into questions,
Okay.
that'd be great.
Do we have any comments?
We do not, sir.
Okay, then I'll close the public hearing, and then I'll ask our council if they have any questions. Let me start with Councilwoman Thurman.
Well, I think most of my questions have been answered, but I do have some adjustments that I would like to see. And I've spoken with Chris about these. I believe that the prior year property taxes, we probably need to reduce by about $60,000, because I don't think we have that much left to collect, and move that to the current year property taxes.
Got it.
Doesn't, yeah, that doesn't change it. We have an additional, we have a net revenue of $300,000. I would like to see $100,000 additional going to sidewalks. I think we have some gaps that we have some places that I would personally like to see sidewalks put in just to fill in some gaps. So I would like to see another $100,000 going towards sidewalks. I think that would be a good use of our taxpayer funds. And then the other thing is, it's my understanding that that the new employees will be hired effective July 1st.
Is that what you want to do?
Is that correct?
Yeah, that was going to, when I got to the point of being able to answer that question, that was going to be the response I was going to give you, that yes, because there's been some concern as to us looking at our retirement program before we bring more people and insert them into that system, that we would hold off on any of these new hires until July the 1st, and I would bring back before that time an evaluation and recommendation of a retirement plan that would work for future employees. I want to be very clear on that. This is not intended to affect anybody who is currently employed by the City of Milton or has been employed or will be employed, but until after a date that the council takes action. So,
And that will give us a couple months to look at our retirement plan options, and then hire these new positions that Stacy mentioned under whatever the new plan is that we.
that's right, and to the extent that we have to come and modify this budget again to account for those actual dollars, that's likely going to occur, because there's no point that I can forecast tonight that we would fund that beginning July the 3rd or July the 6th, and the numbers will fluctuate by the day. So the budget, if you adopt it tonight, is going to have dollar figures in it as though those positions freed up tomorrow. But I fully anticipate that with your direction, I'm not going to go out and hire those folks tomorrow. That if we agree that we're going to wait till July the 1st, that's what we'll do. And I'll bring something back before you as a recommendation prior to that, to be able to offer a different benefit package. I appreciate your consideration and being able to allow us that flexibility to do that, not hold off until October the 1st.
Yeah. And basically, just to clarify that, we would go ahead and approve the budget. These positions can be created. The hiring process can go on, but City Manager and I have discussed, it takes a while to get, that hiring process. Then as we look at other options, we can make that decision before you actually hire them. And again, to be very, very clear that this, any new benefits plan would only be moving forward at that point, and all existing employees, their benefits plan would be the same. It would not, they may have other options they could choose with a new plan, but they certainly would be able to keep their existing plan. So.
But I would like to see an additional $100,000 put into sidewalks.
That was going to be my question. Before
Yeah.
we move much
Yeah,
further, is there consent, just a general at this point, as I'm taking notes so I can try to frame this for you here in a minute, is there?
Let me ask
I think that's a decent idea.
Carter, what's your just gut feel is that a number that we could be productive on that and get it, and then just throwing a number, is there, would that make a difference? Or would it need to be a bigger number, or would that make a difference? Obviously, you can make it, a bigger number could do more, but I don't want to just put it in there if that just scratches the surface.
Right, I was going to say that the sidewalks is always one of those projects that you can pretty much throw as much money as you want to at it, and we could continue to extend it. I think it would. I think we've been looking at gaps. The study that was approved tonight, looking at the Big Creek Greenway connection, I think dollars towards those gaps, and that study really goes from Cambridge over to the Big Creek Greenway somewhere. I think any money that we throw at gaps along that route probably helps show that the community has some participation in that program and will help us with funding in the future. We currently have a section on Webb between 9 and Cogburn that's out to bid right now. We've got a couple of gaps here in the Deerfield area that'll go out to bid this summer with the paving projects. So we do have some that are around. I think we would continue to look at that section along Cogburn.
There are a couple in the Crabapple area too. One of them on property owned by the city that I would like to see on where we
Right.
abandoned the road, that we have about a 15-foot gap in sidewalk.
Some of those will be taken care of with the intersection improvement project, so we want to make sure that that's coordinated with that particular project. We do have the sidewalks along Mayfield, the streetscape project that's currently in process right now. So we do have a lot of sidewalk projects going, but we can always look to fill in some more gaps, and I think gaps in any other direction, we would look to fill in the gaps along Cogburn, working our way up to Cambridge High School.
And there's another gap between two subdivisions in Crabapple too, where kids walk to the bus, that I'd like to look at the possibility of filling that in. But I just think if we could just fill in, rather than big, huge projects, if we could fill in gaps, that goes a long way.
We have mapped out the locations of all of our existing sidewalk at this point, so we would be able to relatively quickly be able to see where those small gaps are that we could really make an impact and get some of these connections going.
Okay, and, the good thing about that is, to Councilmember Thurman's point, if we want to put that money in there, then as our staff moves forward, you can come back to us with an idea of some smart ways to spend that money that does make an impact. So, sounds like most everybody be on board with that.
Sure enough.
Okay. Anybody else? Matt?
Just a couple questions. I've read through this and want to make sure I understand. Elaborate for me, section 3, we talk about switching the fire and the detectives coming here and there. Just to make sure, we're $65,000 to renovate City Hall here
Yes.
versus what we're going to build. That's the question. I'm
It's for here.
wrap my head around
For here.
doing that. So explain that. Is that, I mean, is that going to be a lost cost for us? What's the benefit on that? Just elaborate.
I'll take a stab at it. Basically, as we move forward with City Hall, then we're going to scale down to where we're only going to have half the space, pay half the rent. But that's money that will benefit them while they're here in the additional time.
Okay.
So until there's a public safety building. So it's not, well, it is spending money on a leased property, but there's at least another, 3 years, 5 years additional they'll be in here. So it's usable money or.
When you look at it over the 5 years to create the space with efficiency and usability. Sure. When we decided to move forward with City Hall first, that was what caused us to look at these enhancements, because it'll really increase their effectiveness over the next 5 years, while we wait to build them a facility that will allow them to be effective into the future.
Right. Got to ask the question.
Sure.
I guess the next one too is section 8. We had, you talked about public-private partnerships. Just want to know if you can elaborate which ones you're talking about on that as well.
What I'm looking at there, and this is something that you and I have talked about before, this is moving forward with an actual professional, concerted effort towards forming partnerships with the private sector. And this isn't in the form of trying to go, do a lease purchase to occupy a building. This is to actually solidify us with partnerships as we start to bring these capital assets on board. Rather than going and having the mayors run, for example, and hoping that we get a sponsor that write a $250 check, this is to legitimize and formalize some real strong partnerships with, but a handful of corporations in the community in the area who might have a vested interest in being partnered with a local government who wants to deliver services and get to clients and customers right here on the ground that matters. So that's what this is. It's something that we're seeing a lot of governments that are on the leading edge of positive change. It's governments that are doing that or doing this, and they're finding ways to leverage the private sector, because dollars exist every day that are being left on corporate partners' tables because they don't know where to give it. And I really know right where they can and probably should. And as we start to bring these assets, these capital projects out of the ground, Park, for example, there's a great opportunity to partner with somebody who might want to put trail lighting in, or might want to enhance one of the rectangular fields. Or there's an assortment. I mean, I can sit here and just elaborate all night on the different things that might come from it, but this is to put some actual framework to it and really try to roll out a program that will work for us now and into the future and will be self-sustaining with a very short return on its investment.
Okay. I guess the next question is, and I don't know anything about technology, maybe Councilmember Joe can tell me, but is it really $49,000 to upgrade a website? Is that?
It's a little bit more than a created new website. Regretfully, Jason's still out with his young baby, but I did have the ability. Councilmember Thurman asked this question as well last night, and Jason was nice enough to respond last night with why it costs that amount. So if you'd indulge this is probably not the way to do it. I'd rather have Jason speak to it, but I'll just read you what his response was. And he says, the $59,000 request buys us an entirely new website with a new content management service provider. There's several reasons for this. Number one, when we initially launched the website in 2010, it cost $10,000 for the build and a little less than $2,000 for the maintenance. However, this bought us a fairly bare bones tool, and what he means by that is it really is we put content in, and we have to use their format, their style, all that good stuff. When it became clear that most municipal websites were adopting these design elements, we began exploring options with our current provider, and they had really limited response to help us deal with some of our questions. He says, when it became clear our tool was cheap for a reason, again, functional but not robust, we began asking around to see who had better customer service, et cetera, and started to look at other governments. The cost, while 4 times our first build, is a complete soup to nuts experience. That's Jason's phrase, not mine. It includes content consultants that would meet with the department heads in-house. We talk about rebuilding a website, web-based apps, easy functionality with existing software, citizen interaction tools, and it's just a more robust, complete system that I guess is what I keep hearing from my part of the world, in the city manager world, is that your city hall soon, your face of city hall will soon be the image that you have when somebody goes www. And that they don't necessarily really equate the first image of City Hall being this brick and mortar structure somewhere, although that's important. More and more people interact with their local government with ease if they have a positive web-based experience. And as I understand it, we're functional at this point, but we are not necessarily realizing all of the ease and functionality we could if we had a system that had a little bit more control over our ability to control its output.
Sure.
If you need more than that, I'm going to have to rely on Jason to either send him email or provide him update when he's here again starting next week. But that's about what I can get from him. Anybody else have anything better than that?
And is that something that obviously we can fund tonight, and they can get some clarification before moving forward? And if there's cost savings, we can have extra money.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Two more questions. Sorry about that.
Can I jump in 1 second? I just want to say to the Johnsons, you guys are welcome to stay here as long as you want, but please, it's a school night. Please don't feel bad if you need to get home. So.
This is fabulously entertaining.
Yeah, I was going to say, we're through the exciting part of the agenda.
It is entertaining for me.
Well, let's see. I guess a question too, and with the snow days that we've had here, are we getting any kind of assistance with that from other governments as well, for any money that we incurred in that, any money back?
We've kept all the right documentation that to the extent funding the second storm, we might have some refunding availability for. We managed both of the storms as though we could receive money in either of them, and so that if the money becomes available, we have all the right reporting documents that we're eligible for it.
Okay. And the last question is the 12E was the safety house for community education, and just wanted to see if you can elaborate further on that.
It's a fire department initiative, and when I unfunded that line item, the fire chief came to me and said, I'll take anything off the budget to put that back on. You probably have seen some in other communities where it's a public education outreach tool that goes to the kids and teaches how to get out in the event of a fire, different things to do if the door handle's hot or if there's smoke. And it is an interactive, simulated type experience that the kids can use or be a part of to learn how to get out in the event of a fire. So
Okay.
it's public outreach and a great investment with tremendous impact. With us having as many elementary schools as we do, we've got, and that's just the public ones, we've got a built-in audience.
Right.
And it just gets better from there.
I'm done.
Okay. Bill? I'll go down the line if anybody has questions.
Just one question regarding the police budget here. Looking at hiring 4 new patrol officers and 1 sergeant. I'm glad to see that happen. Earlier in the year, we were talking about also bringing on board another detective. Is that still in the works? Is it still on the wish list?
Yes, what you're seeing in the budget is simply the positions based upon their allocation on our position chart. Yes, one of those is intended to function in the role of detective. I don't know right off the top of my head if it was the sergeant or one of the police officers, but they're graded for the purpose of a budget presentation. Sure. But we're still on track with what we described earlier.
Good deal.
Okay. Joe, you got something?
Yeah, for the most part, Chris, I think that the communication that we've had, prior to this has answered all my questions. I would follow up on 2 things, and they're technology oriented. I can't help that. I sent you a pretty detailed email at one point in time about a month ago regarding the overall management of our IT infrastructure, and I'm pretty sure you're taking some steps towards either addressing some of the concerns that I brought up or something like that. And Councilman Coons, when he brought up the idea of is $50,000 needed to update our website, sort of maybe want to ask a question. I mean, Milton is a very technology-rich city in terms of the citizens that live here. One of the bigger occupations that our citizens are engaged in is IT. And, the questions that Jason or somebody else has regarding, what tools should we be using, how should we be managing this piece, I think we could really help ourselves by calling on our citizens. Have we ever thought about putting in place some kind of a technology advisory committee that could help identify and answer questions such as that?
I don't know that I've necessarily really thought of one in that framework, but that's a great idea. I've thought about the fact that we have some technology resources at our disposal, and I've explored some different things that other, again, I'd like to think more forward-thinking governments are doing, which is really in this world of open data and almost a big data environment where you take your data and throw it out there to those that are experts and see what they can create with it, as opposed to telling them what you want created.
Right.
You sometimes get an amazing product that results, but to the extent that we've got folks that could function in that type of capacity, Jason would be a great person to be at the table with those folks,
Absolutely.
so that we pick the right thing. To your other point, your email, yes, was received and was forwarded along, and there has been a good bit of evaluation put into it at this point, and we're about to have a recommendation come forward from our IT department on that topic. So, yep, it didn't go in the little trash bin.
And I don't think any of this is stuff that needs to be decided on or anything before we vote on this budget, but I'm interested in making sure we're always doing what we can, because you wake up 5 years from now, your IT infrastructure is just going to be what accidentally happened, and I would rather take a more planned approach to addressing some of those questions.
I'll make a comment. That's what's, for the public out there, that's what's nice about our council. We've got a well-rounded council with different professions and expertises, so it's nice to have different folks here with different ideas, and what keeps the city going good. Rick, do you have anything?
No, I think we pretty much covered it.
Okay. All right.
Could Oh, sorry. Actually, we just need to move on at this
Yeah,
point,
we'll
because we
move
can't take a
on.
vote anyway. I was about
No.
to frame for you what I thought I captured, but I'll do that later. in the
This will
meeting.
come back, yeah. So we'll move on to our zoning agenda now. So if our city clerk could please call that.
At the second regularly scheduled meeting of the month, the mayor and city council will consider a zoning agenda. These items include rezoning petitions, modifications of zoning, use permits, and associated concurrent variances, in addition to ordinances, resolutions, and text amendments. I would like to acquaint you with some of the rules and procedures for this meeting. The applicant and all those speaking in support of an application will be allowed a total of 10 minutes to present the petition. The opposition will be allowed a total of 10 minutes to present its position. If time remains, the opposition will be allowed to rebut. The applicant may choose to save some of the time for rebuttal following the presentation by the opposition. Since the burden of proof is upon the applicant will be allowed to make closing remarks, provided time remains with the allotted time. The city clerk will be keeping track of time and will inform you periodically of the remaining time for your presentation. Those called to speak will be taken in the order that the speaker cards were received by the city clerk prior to the beginning of tonight's meeting. All speakers will identify themselves by name, address, and organization, if applicable, before beginning their presentation. The Planning Commission has heard the rezoning agenda items, and recommendations have been forwarded to the mayor and city council for consideration and disposition. The applicant shall not submit material to the council during this meeting unless requested to do so. All material that you wish to be reviewed by the council in consideration of your application should be submitted to the Community Development Department to be included in the normal distribution of packages to the council. When an opponent of a rezoning action has made, within 2 years immediately preceding the filing of the rezoning action being opposed, campaign contributions aggregating $250 or more to a local government official of the local government which will consider the application, it shall be the duty of the opponent to file a disclosure with the governing authority of the respective local government at least 5 days prior to the Planning Commission meeting. A violation of relevant state statute constitutes a misdemeanor. Therefore, if you have contributed $250 or more to a council member and you have not filed a disclosure prior to the Planning Commission's meeting, the city attorney strongly suggests that you have someone else speak for your point of view. Our first zoning item this evening is consideration of RZ 1320. 16340 Birmingham Highway with additional frontage on New Bullpen Road, containing a total of approximately 66.40 acres by Christopher Perry to rezone from AG1 agricultural to CUP community unit plan to develop 52 single-family residences. This is agenda item number 14060. First presentation was held at the March 3rd, 2014 regular City Council meeting. Ms. Kathy Field.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, the applicant of RZ 13-20 respectfully asks that this application be withdrawn without prejudice.
Okay, we've got a public hearing, though. We'll certainly take, do we have any public comments?
We do not, sir.
Okay. Then I'll close the public hearing. And is there any questions to staff? Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to accept the withdrawal of the applicant for consideration of RZ 13-20.
Second.
Okay, got a motion for withdrawal without prejudice.
Without prejudice.
From Councilmember Coots and a second from Councilmember Thurman. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passed unanimously. Okay, our city clerk will please call the next item.
Our next item is consideration of RZ 1321, 975 Birmingham Road and 15755 Birmingham Highway, containing a total of 22.3 acres by Acadia Homes and Neighborhoods LLC to rezone from MIX Mixed Use and AG1 Agricultural to CUP Community Unit Plan to develop 55 single-family residences. This is agenda item number 14061. First presentation was heard at the March 3rd, 2014 regular council meeting. Ms. Kathy Field.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, the applicant of RZ 13-21 respectfully requests that this application be withdrawn without prejudice. A representative of Arcadia Homes is in the audience should you have any questions.
Okay. Do we have any public comment on this?
We do not, sir.
Okay, I will close the public hearing. If there's any questions for staff or representative of this project, feel free to ask. If not, we'll open up for a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we accept the withdrawal of RZ 13-21 without prejudice.
Second.
Okay, got a motion from Councilmember Morig to allow the applicant to withdraw without prejudice, and a second from Councilmember Longoria. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. Okay, well, we must be getting a tough reputation here in the city of Milton with our moratoriums. All right, if our city clerk will please move forward with the next zoning agenda.
Our final zoning item, a consideration of ZM 1401, 13660 New Providence Road, Mill Springs Academy, to modify the site plan submitted on November 5th, 1996, to a revised site plan submitted on February 4th, 2014. This is agenda item number 14062, first presentation at the March 3rd, 2014 regular council meeting. Ms. Kathy Field.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a zoning modification for Mill Springs Academy. The first slide shows the outline of the site parcel. This shows the current zoning, and you can see that the area around the site is all AG1. By way of background, there was an original use permit for a private school that was approved by Fulton County in 1996 with the following conditions. That it be, according to the site plan as received on November the 5th, 1996, that a maximum of 165,000 square feet be allowed for the buildings, that there be no more than 500 students from K through 12, and no more than 3 recreational fields and 4 recreational courts. And you have in front of you the site plan that was approved in 1996. However, in 2002, the applicant was granted a variance for several requirements of the Northwest Fulton overlay, which was approved by the Fulton County Board of Appeals. The following site plan was submitted with the request. And you have that site plan. Currently, there are 7 temporary buildings located near the eastern property line adjacent to Gates Mill subdivision with the internal driveway west of the temporary buildings. There is a total of 86,897 square feet existing on the campus with approximately 300 to 400 students. And this site plan shows the existing conditions as I just stated. We now have a proposed site plan. The applicant proposes to replace the 7 temporary buildings with permanent buildings for the lower school, middle school, fine arts, technology area, administration, and a second gymnasium. These changes, along with the other existing buildings, represent a total of 149,166 square feet, which is within the approved conditions from 1996, which, as you may remember, was for no more than 165,000 square feet. And this is the revised site plan. Staff did note that the revised site plan on February 4th, 2014 really sort of replicates almost the original site plan of 1996. Therefore, the applicant is requesting a modification, as shown on their current site plan of February the 4th, to the 1996 site plan to reflect the changes in the overall site plan that incorporates these changes. The site plan indicates compliance with the existing conditions, variance granted, and the zoning ordinance. Additionally, the proposed use is consistent with the original request for the special use permit for a private school. Therefore, staff recommends approval conditional of ZM 14-01 to replace the existing site plan with the revised site plan submitted to the Community Development Department on February 4th, 2014. Their engineer from school is in the audience, who worked on the original site plan all the way through the site plan, and is certainly available to answer any questions, should you have any as well.
Okay. Open up for questions. All right, before that, I'll ask, do we have any public comment on this?
Yes, we have a public comment in support.
Okay. We'll,
That's the applicant, Robert W. Moore.
all right. Robert, if you'd like to step up.
Mayor, Council, I'm Robert Moore. I'm the headmaster at Mill Springs Academy, home of the Mustangs. We're delightful members of the community, and I think everything's accurate that was presented, and we're just renewing the land plan. We're not doing anything different, no changes, and number of students or no football lights, nothing. Just good, clean fun and having an update so that we're all on the same page. We thank the staff for their hard work.
Okay.
And I'll reserve any time if I need it.
Yep. All right. All right.
I think I will.
Would you want to go ahead and call out? Is there any more for?
There's no more in support.
You want to call out the 20 that were in opposition? Okay.
We're close to our neighbors.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
keep them informed. They know what's going
No.
on.
Is there any other comments? Public comment?
That's all, sir.
All right. I'll close the public hearing, and I would say we're glad to have you in the city of Milton, and I do think you're a good neighbor and a good school. We're proud to have you in our city. So, are there questions from council to staff or the headmaster? Okay.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you. I'll open up for motion if there's no questions.
I'll move to approve ZM 14-01 13660 New Providence Road, Mill Springs Academy, to modify the site plan submitted on November 5th, 1996, to a revised site plan submitted on February 4th, 2014, with the conditional approval proposed by staff.
I'll second it.
Okay, we've got a motion for approval from Councilmember Luss, second from Councilmember Thurmond. Are there any discussion? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. Thank you, Robert. All right, let's see, we'll move on to unfinished business. If our clerk would please call that item.
Consideration of an ordinance to adopt amendments to the fiscal 2014 budget for each fund of the City of Milton, Georgia, amending the amounts shown in each budget as expenditures, amending the several items of revenue anticipations, prohibiting expenditures to exceed appropriations, and prohibiting expenditures to exceed actual funding available. Agenda item number 14063. First presentation was held March 3rd, 2014. Regular City Council meeting. Public hearing was heard this evening, March 17th. Ms. Stacy Inglis.
Mayor and Council, I'm going to take this because we've kind of already made the presentation. If there's any additional questions, we'll be happy to answer them. I want to capture for you what I think I captured as a takeaway from the public hearing earlier, which if somebody were to make a motion, it would include these modifications. One was that we would decrease prior year property tax by $60,000 and increase current year property tax by $60,000 in our projections. That we would add $100,000 into the capital projects account that goes towards sidewalk construction. That any of the new hires that are contemplated in this budget, and there are 5 in the police department and 1 in the fire department, would be contingent upon us waiting until at least July the 1st and also bringing back before the council modifications and recommendations with the city's retirement program, as well as keeping open the discussion on the website modification once Jason Wright is back in the office and could respond to questions before we move forward. Those were the 4 items I captured. If there are any others or any other questions, we'll be happy to
there any other questions, or is that going to wrap up what we discussed, council members?
That's what it's supposed to- Unless you had additional ones.
Okay. All right, we can open up for a motion.
Mayor, I move that we approve consideration online of an ordinance to adopt budget amendments for fiscal 2014 budget, agenda item number 14063.
Second motion.
Okay, got a motion for approval with the changes that were read out into the record from Councilmember.
Do you want to amend your?
I was just smiling because I forgot to add that in. So, yeah, that's what I meant when I
If those
said
are the
it.
four you want, then we'll reference those.
Yes.
Mayor,
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Did you have another adjustment?
No.
Okay.
So just include what Chris, or the city manager.
So I have a motion by Councilmember Longoria
Second.
and a second from Councilmember Lusk. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous. Good job, staff.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, all right, let's move on to new business. We have already done the Noel Carpenters, so we'll, if our city clerk will please read the next item.
Consideration of a resolution for Crown Castle's application for utilization of City of Milton right-of-way for telecommunication facilities as authorized by law. This is agenda item number 14079. Mr. Ken Gerard.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, you have in your agenda book a proposed resolution that would approve Crown Castle NG East Inc.'s application to utilize the City of Milton right-of-way for the provision of telecommunication services. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, this is a resolution that simply is in accord with state law. State law allows a utility provider like a telephone company like Crown Castle to make application to municipality and seek the right to erect telecommunication facilities in our right-of-way. This is basically their requirement, their formal obligation to ask our approval to do that. I will tell you the statute anticipates that within 60 days of them making an application, if we do not approve it, state law deems it approved anyway. So I will tell you that there is obviously a public policy in doing what it can to, and what the state can to facilitate the erection of these communication facilities. But we have attempted to meet with Crown Castle, the city manager, as well as the mayor, have met with representatives of Crown Castle. We understand what they are endeavoring to do, and I want to go over just a couple of salient points with respect to this resolution and this law. First of all, they, meaning Crown Castle, even if the council approves this resolution, still must comply with our telecommunications ordinance. So in other words, this is the threshold request to use our right-of-way, but then once they come up with a discrete, specific plan on where they may want to erect a facility, they have to come back to us, and they have to make application to do that. They did provide us a limited map sort of showing what their plan was, and it's basically these micro cells that they might want to erect some small towers within the right-of-way to enhance certain coverage in certain areas where they need some targeted technology. But at this point, I don't think they've perfected it, so then they've not made formal application yet. A couple of other points. First of all, once they begin to erect towers or telecommunication structures within our right-of-way, they do have to begin paying us what's called due compensation, which is 3% of their revenue. So that is an income stream that we will then be entitled to receive. In addition, we have protections under the law. First of all, to the extent that there is any maintenance or repair obligations, those are of course going to be the obligation of Crown Castle. To the extent we have to modify or get into our right-of-way, we can put them on notice of that, and they are responsible financially for moving their facility out of our way, so we can then do what we need to do within our right-of-way. So there are protections built into the law. Otherwise, we have provided this resolution to Crown Castle. They have reviewed it. Their council has reviewed it. They are very comfortable with it. I believe it's consistent with the law. My recommendation, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, is to approve it.
Okay. Any questions on that or comments? Bill?
This is the first type of application that we've got for that type of communication services there.
Yes, it is, and it was uncanny how it came on the heels of what seemed to be a different type of technology application in Milton. My first reaction was, "Are you kidding me?" Yes. My second reaction is that one didn't know what the other one was doing, and that they were two totally different things.
Which reaction was correct?
I thought they were both correct.
They were both appropriate when they happened.
I agree.
I will say that when they came and met with us, it was the day that Jason got in the sunglasses, the City of Milton sunglasses, and we passed those out to them as a little token, and they looked at them funny and made a comment about, they were plastic, but they were fake wood. And I said, wow, just kind of like those trees, So, it was Bill.
How was the revenue, what's the revenue structure like for facilities like these? Has it been determined in other jurisdictions? Do we have an idea?
That's right. It is actually based on the statute, and it's a defined term. Due compensation is 3% of the revenues received by a company from its retail end user customers within the jurisdiction. So,
That's gross, not net, right?
well, it's actually got like 7 or 8 subparts that get to how that's defined, and I guarantee you Crown Castle knows exactly how to characterize it. But once they actually put a telecommunication facility in our right-of-way, we will get on the job of coordinating to make sure that their numbers are correct under the law. And in fact, the statute actually anticipates that we have the right to seek documentation from them to confirm that the actual compensation they pay us is correct.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, I'll open that one up for a motion in this. Chris stated and, came and met with us, but as Ken, to Ken's point, it's basically a legal process we have to follow through. So.
Mayor, I'd move to approve consideration of resolution for Crown Castle's application, agenda item number 14-079.
Second.
Okay, got a motion by Councilmember Longoria for approval and a second from Councilmember Morick. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. Okay, City Clerk will please call the next item.
Our final item this evening is consideration of an application for the abandonment of a portion of Holly Road. Agenda item number 14080. Mr. Carter Lucas.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Can you bring that one up?
Yeah, is your mic turned on?
The Holly Road site plan exhibit. Thank you. We've received an application for the abandonment of a portion of Holly Road. Holly Road is a gravel road out on the west side of town, comes off of 140 and basically runs up and dead ends into the Chadwick landfill. Under our process, the first step in that application is a hearing. It's not a public hearing, it's a consideration by council whether or not we want to accept the application for further processing. So this is an opportunity for council to express any objections or concerns, or in fact kill the application at this process without the applicant enduring any more costs in the process. It is not a consideration of the abandonment. That'll come at a later date. And so at this point, all we're asking is whether or not you want us to consider the abandonment of this back section of Holly Road. The section in question would be to the east of the parcel outlined in blue. Currently, we maintain, if you can see on that exhibit, back where the white line for Holly Road essentially turns into just an outline of the right-of-way, really identifies the place where we end our current maintenance. So this is another road that was closed, and it's a dead-end road. The back half of the right-of-way has not been maintained since we've been a city. And the property owner adjacent to that and the property outlined in blue is requesting the abandonment of that particular piece. So if council wishes to consider this or have staff consider this, We would continue to go through the process and accept all the documentation necessary to bring forward to council to make a determination on whether or not to abandon it in the future. And that's all I have for this item. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
I'll open up. Bill?
Does that section of road provide any access to Providence Lake and particularly Gunston Hall Court?
No, sir, not that I'm aware of.
There's no rear
No, I've
access.
driven down there. It does not.
Then above that, where it dead ends, is that an abandoned section up there just under the labeled Chadwick landfill? Is that the old...
There's some indication that there's an old Chadwick Road right-of-way that comes up through there, and on the map that was submitted as part of this application, it does show that. It does not show up in the records that we received from Fulton County as an existing right-of-way. So one of the things that we'll try to answer through this is whether or not the old Chadwick Road right-of-way actually exists.
And how many, is that Atlanta National behind it? The old road there, I guess.
Well, there's Gunston Hall to the east, and then Chadwick's landfill to the north.
Okay, that is the landfill.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So will the road just dead end at their property line, because they have to have access to their property?
Yeah, the property owners actually purchased two pieces that goes all the way out to 140.
Okay.
So they would technically have access on 140, and if we ended up with a landlocked parcel back here, because of the abandonment, they would have to do a combination plat to bring those two parcels together.
Okay, any other questions on that?
So as part of the abandonment process, we include the ability for the concern, I forget how we phrase the concerned residents or the affected residents.
Community.
Community, yeah. So all of the property owners around here are aware of what's going on and been notified?
They would be through this process.
Okay.
So they're not necessarily prior to this initial hearing, but before the public hearing,
Okay.
they would have
Right.
to be.
Official notice.
That's correct. The way the community is defined in the ordinance are those properties who use the road for access to their properties or are adjacent to the right-of-way to be abandoned.
Okay. Okay. All right. We'll open up for a motion.
So all we're asking you
Yeah.
to, do we actually need to vote tonight, or we just, because all we.
No, I think we do.
We do, but we're not looking for a motion to abandon, just whether or not you
This
would
is a
allow
vote
this to move forward.
to say
Consider
we're
the
willing to
application.
debate or consider or whatever.
That's right.
Just an application.
Mayor,
Mayor,
we could change that.
I'll move to approve an application for the abandonment of a portion of Holly Road, agenda item number 14-080.
Second.
Okay. Got a motion by Councilmember Lust, second by Councilmember Kuntz. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous.
Thank you.
Can we discuss that issue, or do we have to do it in a, can we go back and look at the budget or not, since we're closed? I think I got a wrong nod.
Probably not. At this
Okay.
point, you all have already passed
Okay.
upon it, yeah.
Okay.
We can't go back and, we can amend the agenda to, we look at the budget?
You could do a motion for reconsideration of the item if you chose to, and then put it back on the table again.
Okay. I don't mind doing a motion for that.
I'll second it.
This one. All right, make a motion to reopen or reconsider the agenda item, the budget.
Pertaining to the budget, yes, sir.
Okay, and a motion by myself and a second by Councilmember Thurman. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay. I'll open it up. I wanted to, we had discussed adding $25,000 to the city manager's budget, and I thought we had already done that and took a nod as we had, and we had not. So if, I'd like to make a motion that we add $25,000 to the city manager's budget.
I'll second the motion.
So I've got a motion by myself, a second from Councilmember Lusk. All in favor? Or is there any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous. Passes. Thank you. All right,
Just real quick before we move on, so that, you're comfortable, Stacy, as far as, thank you.
okay.
Yep.
Yeah, we had discussed it prior, and I thought it was in there, and it's not.
I just want to make sure otherwise, the rest of the approval for the budget was to our satisfaction. That's fine. That's
Okay.
what it is. Thank you.
Anybody in the council have anything they want to report on or questions?
Yeah.
See, one thing, it's not football season, right?
It's always football season. That means recruiting season's done. We've got spring ball getting going. It's great. But first of all, happy St. Patrick's Day to everybody, and I just want to say I had a great time working at the Old Blind Dog Pub with Councilmember Lusk, Councilmember Thurman, and seeing the community come in there as a venue from a city perspective. It was great seeing a lot of people come in to celebrate on Saturday, and great community thing for all of us in my mind. Can't wait to see Crabapple continue to grow and develop. The other thing is the Cambridge band, again, which we were at for the announcement that they can go to London for the new year. They're starting to do some fundraising with that. They have a golf tournament coming up. And I would recommend anybody who is interested be willing to support them. It's not a cheap endeavor, but it's definitely a lifetime experience for those kids. And we'd like to just announce that those opportunities are available for contributions and support and things of that nature for them.
Yeah, I got to say that was a kind of a neat experience to see when, I can't remember what they call the mayor something. Lord Mayor came and from England and her entourage and the guy that puts
Well, you
on.
want to talk about you, the Lord Mayor? This is another Lord Mayor. Oh, okay, I got it.
But, you know, that Lord Mayor is just like kind of a, not even an ex-mayor. It's just kind of a ceremonial type thing.
I get it.
So, not a real important. No, I'm kidding. Anyways, long story short, it was a really neat deal seeing the guy that actually puts on this parade, and we got the statistics, huge and national, going to be on national TV and all. And they chose the Cambridge band, but the kids that played in the band didn't know that, and so basically they were just alerted to show up at time during the school day, and they were going to do a little presentation because some folks from England were there and whatnot, and they, we're going to do a little show for them. And so we were sitting in there, and I believe Councilmember Kennett, you were there too, and we knew what was going on. And their band, I think the band teacher knew, the band director knew, but nobody else really knew. And so this guy got up and he was speaking all about this where they're from, and about this parade and all this stuff. And after the kids played, and I don't think and he started saying, my job is to search all over the country and choose the few lucky, blah, blah, blah. And little hints more and more, and you could see the kids kind of light up, one at a time at different points, like, wait a minute. So they were kind of figuring it out before they actually said, we came here to invite, Cambridge, you guys to go, so, and be in the parade.
Except for the seniors, because one by one they went,
Yeah, the seniors like, it's next year. All right, does our staff have any announcements?
We do tonight. We've got a couple. And a good segue from your discussion about Crabapple starting to form as a village. I think I let you all know this, but I'll let you know on the record tonight that we have officially closed and own almost 90% of the parcel that we need out there. We still have one more to close. It's about a 0.4 acre, but the large one that's going to allow us to move forward with City Hall is in the ownership now of the city of Milton. So that's a great thing for us and for our community tonight. So other topic discussion tonight, just real quickly to bring you up to speed on, is this is a project that's actually happening, a rezoning request that's happening in the city of Alpharetta, but it largely impacts our community in Crabapple, and it is completely surrounded by the city of Milton. It's if you can picture behind their government center there's an area that exists between the government center and the pond. I call it the pond. It's a stormwater facility that is flanked by houses on both sides, Crabapple Station and Crabapple Crossing, I believe it is. Two names. There's a proposal for what we would call a multifamily development on a piece of property there at the end of the pond. Essentially what it is a six condo unit on 3 floors with underground sublevel parking. It's being proposed there, and it's tracking in Alpharetta zoning in their zoning calendar, just like it would be in ours. And it's evaluated against Alpharetta's zoning laws and their codes, and they measure roof height at a different place than we do, and they consider it to be townhome or we consider it to be multifamily. So we're starting to work through some of the nuances there as to how this development ends up being a positive thing for the city of Milton, even though it's controlled by the city of Alpharetta. Highlights, yet again, the need to clean up that jurisdiction out there in Crabapple so that at some point those properties can be annexed and controlled by Milton. I say all that to say, I'd like you to, I'll send you the link to the Alpharetta staff report. I'd like you to take a look, become familiar with what's going on out there. Even though it's not going to come in front of you, I think to some degree, and I think Councilmember Thurman and I heard last week when we were out in the Crabapple community that there are some citizens, our citizens out there, who feel as though they want to be heard in this particular case and are just not exactly sure how much they've been heard at this point. And I think, honestly, they've been heard more than they think they've been heard potentially after meeting with Alpharetta folks today. But this gives us the opportunity to provide some feedback into their development. They certainly will hear what we have to say. Staff is working on it from an architectural standpoint, meaning we're making recommendations based upon our codes and our standards so that the development out there is in keeping with what's in the area. One thing I brought up to Councilmember Thurman today, which is something that we talked with the city of Alpharetta about earlier, is that if we want to hold our own community meeting on this topic, not part of the Zoning Procedures Act, not part of their rezoning application, but if we want to hold a public meeting so that our citizens feel as though they have a venue to be heard by their elected officials, and that then we can capture and summarize their response and send it to Alpharetta in kind of a nice little package, at least it could almost be comments coming from the neighboring community rather than the one-off, here, this is my thought, here, this is my thought, here, this is my thought. It seems as though there might be value in trying to package that up and bundle it up a little bit and send it over there. If that's something you'd like to give some thought to and provide some direction on, I think that there's probably some value in trying to get that scheduled. And Alpharetta was very open to it. They even said they'd be willing to send a representative to it to show that they certainly didn't feel as though we were trying to undermine them, do their work for them, or any of that. It's just the fact that they recognize they've got to approve something potentially in an area that we're more impacted than they are.
I think it's a good idea. I think we need to wait till we have a better idea of what exactly is going there architecturally, because I think that was one of their large concerns, and I think we've heard that we don't really know what it's going to look like. It's actually a member of our design review board that's doing the design of it, so hopefully he will understand what we would like to see there.
I agree. Timing's going to be a little bit of an interesting thing for us because they told us today in order to be in receipt of the information we present them and it become part of the application going forward, they need to be in receipt of it by March the 31st. Now that's less than 15 days away. So we're going to meet with the architect in the case and the landowner in the case this week to see if we can't drive some of the design to match the standard that Milton sees. Ironically, and just because of the way the building is situated, the thing that our residents are going to look at, that our citizens are going to look at, is the back of the building. So it's almost the back of the building is more important to us at this point for their views. The front of the building looks okay, and it looks fine, and that's all well and good. It needs to look good, but we also need to make sure in this particular circumstance that the back looks good as well. So let's get through this week, and I'll follow back up with you, let's say a week from tonight, and it's going to be in the form of an email because we won't be here together. But hopefully we'll have enough information to go ahead and lock down a date, and we'll go ahead and call that meeting, and as many of you want to show up as possible, that's fine. We'll just need to advertise it publicly so y'all can be there. Okay. One other item.
Hold on, Chris, did you
Sorry.
have a comment on that, Bill?
No, that's something else.
Okay. Go ahead.
One other item I want to bring up is we're starting to hone in and nail down final locations for tornado sirens, at least what matches on a map and topography to what actually works in the community. So it's become an exercise on paper at this point, but that exercise on paper has now got to transition into the community. We would not put these tornado sirens on anything other than city-owned land or in city-owned right-of-way. So as far as placement, it's not really that big of an issue. We can just say here will be where we are going to put one. But if history repeats itself, we will likely experience, no matter where those are. You think they're in the, intended for safety. Wherever we decide to put them, somebody's not going to want them. So as we start to go out and identify these spaces, I might be coming to you at some point to have you help. If I need to get into a neighborhood and explain the safety aspect of it, or we need to talk to some people and try to explain why this is a good thing and not necessarily a bad thing. Just know that there are some locations in Milton. We don't own enough buildings that we can just put them at all of our buildings and be okay. So
Can they go on cell towers?
No, they go on just a normal pole. They have to be connected pretty close to power. So that's one of the driving things. I would think people would want them, but it's mixed emotion.
Big pine tree.
We could make
Actually, when I since this is coming down, I've kind of noticed them, and they're on a pole, they do stick out, but reality is you could probably do them a different color or something, and you could probably blend them in where they weren't too bad.
We've already gone so far as to bid. When we bid a black powder coated pole, so it's not the wooden pole or a white pole or a galvanized pole. We've already built it. We've already taken out as many of the Milton things as we could to make it blend in as much as we could with the rest of our traffic poles that have a certain mast arm style to them, where it's not just galvanized or band wire. It's actually a good looking, if you can describe a pole that holds a traffic light as good looking, they are better looking than the alternative.
Everything's relative.
It is. So as that moves forward, we might need your help. Just want to throw it out there that it is moving forward.
And these will be, once we get them installed, they'll be like the once a month testing. Is that what Alpharetta does, or once a quarter?
They test every Wednesday at noon if the weather's clear. So I don't know exactly what we pick, but
a lot of testing.
They do sound them once a week. They sound them once a week for a minute.
You'll be at work.
And it'll be bright, sunny outside, not a drop of rain in the area, and 911 call ringing, wondering where the storm is. Do they need to take cover? But if there's even the chance of severe weather, they don't do them on Wednesdays at noon. But, Carter's got a quick update for us, and this will be our last one for the night, unless you have some questions, which I'm happy to answer on Justin Adams.
Just wanted to circle back around on this particular project. We are done with our cleanup over there. David will scroll through a couple of photographs here. We did some before and after pictures just to give you an idea of what the project looked like before we started versus where we are today. To the best of our ability, these pictures, believe it or not, are all taken from approximately the same location and of the same area. We had an outstanding contractor who did a great job out there. He was sensitive to the situation, provided enough manpower and equipment to get this done relatively quickly. While we're not through going over the numbers, I will say that we are in budget on this particular project. And in addition to the 12 boats, vehicles, construction equipments, and campers that we took off the project, we removed about 300 tons worth of material, and as well as about 100 tons worth of vegetative debris from the site.
Are we trying to fill up the Chadwick Road landfill as quickly as possible?
It would seem so. So we've done quite a bit to the property. We try to recognize that there's an active building permit as well as a legal business operating on the site, and so while the site is not completely clean, we had to leave those materials that could be associated with that use and permit. So, but I think you can see from these pictures that there's quite a dramatic difference now from where we were when we started. So at this point, we have considered that our compliance work is complete, and we've moved off the site until probably some later date.
What about future protection?
I will try that one very quickly. I will just say that we have had some preliminary discussions with Ms. Green's conservator, which has now been assigned to her and by the courts. And candidly, I will tell you, members of the council, that is the best thing that could have happened in this situation, because the conservator has a ethical and legal obligation to look out for Ms. Green and to ensure that her property is protected, and candidly that her resources are protected for her care. And so the conservator is extremely interested in getting this matter resolved and ensuring that the balance of Ms. Green's property is protected with no further monetary impact, if you understand what I'm suggesting. So we think this is a very, very positive development.
You know, and I just want to say too, you know, from the opposite side, I think not only our staff and council, you know, we gave every opportunity for Mr. Adams to clean it up, and, you know, even towards the end, you know, another 30 days. So I think the council, the city did everything, you know, we gave them every opportunity to take care of the problem themselves, so.
I concur.
Is there an opportunity to recoup some of this cost in the future?
Well, with respect to the
Against the
costs
sale.
expended, we took great care to ensure we used a system that would allow this to be distilled into a lien on the property, which is, of course, what the conservator is calling about and concerned with. With respect to future costs, it is our hope that there will be no future costs based upon the fact that the conservator, as representing Ms. Green, represents the property owner, and nothing should be deposited on the owner's property without the owner's permission. I won't go further down that path, but you understand what I'm suggesting.
Is she the sole owner?
Based upon the title work we have looked at, that is correct.
That's good.
Okay. Good job on that, Carter. And the rest of your stuff.
And if anybody has anything
I
on.
think Bill wanted to say something.
I wanted to mention, last Thursday, I had the privilege of participating in Career Day over at Northwestern Middle School at the urging of Councilmember Longoria. But also want to state that Chris and Stacy, Matt Marietta, and one other clerk was there. We had great representation from the city. Encouraging to see so many bright, eager minds ask great questions, and rising stars here in Milton. It's good to see such bright kids, future leaders, hopefully, of Milton.
I was just pleased to know that all the kids knew what the mayor's name was, but didn't know what the city manager's name was.
5 years ago, we wouldn't have had that, but it's, yes. That was a trivia question I gave away a lot of sunglasses with when I asked it. And they all knew what Milton was, which 5 years ago they wouldn't have known that either.
Right.
So you could definitely see, you know, these kids were in second grade when Milton was formed, so you can see the definite transition. It's kind of cool.
I would say I happened to walk in on Chris and Stacy for about 20 minutes, very end, and the question asked to me was, "So what do you do?" Like, exactly. So anyway, great job though. I enjoyed hearing you guys.
Thanks.
All right.
And that video you guys had as well. Is that something that I'd like to talk to you guys further about? That as an actual inquiry about that. So anyway.
All right. I'll open up for a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All right, got a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous.